So, how exactly do you speak God's language? Hey guys, it's John here in the studio again, still drinking my mug of coffee. The ever present mug of coffee, as it were. I am looking outside my window. It is wet, rainy, and snowy, and I'm enjoying my time in my warm studio talking to you. I hope you're having a great day wherever you are, and it's beautiful. And understand that all weather is beautiful. All weather has some purpose in some form to help the world in some way. Moisture is good for the trees and the plants and the animals. So find beauty in it all. I wanted to talk about the concept of the language of God, because God speaks to us in feelings, not thinkings. God speaks to us in ways that tell us what's good for us, what's bad for us, what's not for us. And it does that by our own emotional state. We come through something and we just don't like it. That's saying it's not for us. That's God's source consciousness, yada yada, whatever, saying it's not for you. In the New Age language, they would say it doesn't resonate, right? But in reality, it's the source saying that doesn't fit for you. That's not for you, right? But the tough part about speaking to God is you have to speak in God's language. But God's language, as I said, is feelings, not thinking. So oftentimes when I talk to people about changing their lives or empowering themselves or creating something new, I often will infuse the statements with words like joyful, wonderfully, happily, words that have feelings that when I say them, I can feel I'm joyfully. Makes me exhale, right? Makes me come to that place of realizing that I'm one with God and I'm joyfully receiving. And it makes you feel so good about joyfully receiving, right? God says this is not for you. You turn around and say, okay, that's not for me. I am joyfully receiving this, and I respond to God in joyful. I am joyfully receiving this, and I declare into my existence what I'm creating. And then God, so that's what you want? Okay, there you go. There it is, right? It says, whatever you ask in God's name is granted. And people will often try to infuse God's will or some external God trying to say you're supposed to do something. And none of those are true. For me, especially. God is the substance of the universe that gives us the reflection of our will. Our will. Not God's will. Not some male patriarchal God on top of a cloud looking down with his beard. Not some goddess figure. There's no gender in God. It's just the substance of the universe with full consciousness. I believe in very much like Einstein said he believed in the God of Spinoza, which is an overriding consciousness, something that's out there and aware, that's in everything. And when you look at the idea of you in this world, and you're focused on, say, something traumatic happened to you in your past, and the rest of your life you feel like a victim. Well, why are you feeling like a victim? Because you are focusing on the negative. Well, that negative feeling you have, that's God saying that's not for you. Just flip it. Then that's not for me. Then I'm not doing that anymore. I am not doing that anymore. I am creating something beautiful into my life. I am joyfully and happily living into a life with amazing experiences. I'm happily exploring a new home or wonderfully finding a new love. These things are talking back to God with the language that God understands more clearly. Because words without thoughts never to heaven go. That's what Shakespeare said. But the thoughts have feelings. The beliefs have feelings. When you believe something, you feel it because you believe it. And that is the language of God. But the cool part about the language is we can take the things we don't like and turn around and say, well, this is what we do like. We can impress to God that this is what we're creating now through this beautiful feeling. And when you come from that space of this beautiful feeling is what I am creating into my life now, and God will always give you exactly what you ask for. Whatever you ask in God's name is granted if you have faith, right? Whatever you ask is granted. You can ask mountains to move, and it'll move. Nothing's impossible, right? So it comes back to you in this moment, speaking with that language of God. God says, see how beautiful and fun that is? You're like, this is beautiful and fun. I love this. That's like telling God, more of that, please. That's exactly what that is. If you're enjoying something, you're experiencing something. And then when you really get into this and you start giving that joyful feeling to someone else, how are you today, sir? How's everything going for you? Well, that's a beautiful sweater you're wearing, ma'am. You start giving that love out. What have you done? You've spoken with the language of God to someone else, right? You've given them a reason to not think so fearfully. You've given them a reason to say, look, there is good people in the world. You've given them a reason for them to say, look, not all people of that race are bad, right? And, and look at it from, we're all humans. And you come at it from, I feel beautiful, and these people around me are beautiful as well. And so I'm going to give them a loving experience, no matter who they are, no matter what they are. And sometimes we just need to hear beautiful, loving things. And I remember the story of Antoinette Tuff, and I've talked about her in other videos, but I just love her story. She was an office worker at a high school. And this teenager walks in with an AR-15. And she was panicked and afraid, but then she starts saying, you okay, honey? What do we need to do for you? She started talking to him. He says, nobody cares, nobody loves me. She says, I love you, honey. I love you. And she says, I don't know what I'm going to do. She says, don't you worry, I'm going to help you get through this. And she goes over and she sits down with him and she hugs him. And then she calls the police and she says, it's okay. He's good now. You don't come in. You don't hurt him. She started saying very protective things of him, showing him love, giving him the feeling that someone was there and taking care of him. She spoke in the language of God. I love you, honey. I care. She spoke in the language of God. And that young man surrendered his gun and turned himself in and went for mental help and had some real ties. I haven't heard much more about his story afterwards, but Antoinette Tuff, in that moment, just showed him the language of God, just showed him love and compassion, showed him someone cared, right? That's important. There's another story in the Philippines of a guy who walks into a police station wanting to be suicide by cop, walked in with a machete, and the cop at the desk comes out and just starts talking to him. And the cop, rather than being aggressive and going towards him, just sits down on his desk and says, what's going on? How can I help you? And then the guy just starts talking, and finally he says, can I hug you? And he walks over and he just hugs the guy and takes the machete out of his hand, and the other police come up and the other cop just sat there and hugged the man. He talked to the man with the language of God. He showed the man love and compassion. And in those moments, you show the man love and compassion, you give them an off-ramp from their fears and their anxieties. You give them an opportunity to speak the love of God back, or to be comforted by the language of God, which is love, which is the positive sensations of the world. When God says this is terrible, that's not for him. So that kid with the AR-15 was succumbing to the fears and the anxieties, and the whole time, because he was having such a horrible time, God was saying, this isn't for you. This isn't for you. The kid was struggling and angry and sad and frustrated and scared, and had all of those emotions was God saying, this isn't for you. This isn't for you. Thank God Antoinette Tuff was there to speak the language of God, to say, I love you, honey, I care. That's speaking it outwardly. Speaking it into your own life is to say, I'm joyfully receiving, happily creating, speaking the language of God and creating something beautiful. Antoinette Tuff, for that kid, created a possibility, created a way of him getting healed. Language of God is love. It's joyful. It's happy. It's fun. And when you are the one delivering it, you're delivering God. And when you're delivering it to yourself, you're co-creating joyfully with God, and you're experiencing the expression of your full self in God in the present moment by saying, you're right, that isn't for me. I am joyfully receiving this instead. I am having a horrible relationship with my child. You're right. I'm not doing that. I am joyfully receiving a better relationship with my child. And I'm just going to show them I love them without a condition. They don't have to do anything. I just love you no matter what. I tell the story frequently of the woman who was ending the relationship with her mother, and I told her to say, no matter what you do or say, I'll always love you. And mean it. To literally say, no matter what you do or say, I am going to love you. Speaking the language of God, which is unconditional, and that love, it solved their relationship problem because the mother wanted to be loved. The reason the mother was acting the way the mother was because she wasn't feeling respected, which is the fear of not being loved. So it comes back to speaking the language of God. What is the language of God? It's the emotions that are attached to love. Joy, fun, happiness, excitement. These are the language of God. Fear is God saying, no, that's not for you. That is part of the language, but it's the part that says this is the stuff you get out of your life. And I wanted to just hop on and say this because I think we often miss speaking in the language of God and stepping into our own power, knowing that when something's not right for us, we're not stuck in it. It's just something that God's saying, no, this isn't for you. And you can turn around and say, okay, that's not for me. I'm doing this instead. You can do this. And it's frequently like we get stuck in those moments of they were the love of my life. No, they weren't. They were the love of that part of your life. But as long as you stay in this pining and yearning, which is God telling you it's not for you, you're going to be forever without another love because you've decided that that's the only one for your life. And God's saying, no, that bad feeling, that pining, that yearning, that's God saying it's not for you. And then you turn around and say, I am joyfully living a life surrounded by people I love who love me in return. What happens next is you start finding people who will love you for you. But it comes back to you speaking the language of God and understanding that when things don't feel good, that's God saying it's not for you. And you get to turn around and say, okay, that's not for me, you're right, but I am doing this. I'm joyfully receiving. That's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.